All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the imho.love show here on tantalk1340.com. And my name is Lou Angelwolf, and I am hosting the show here on October 9th, 2019, with my co-host, Michael Murburg.
Hola, amigo.
Dude, you look good. You look good.
Thanks.
And you got a head full of stuff for us tonight.
Yeah, no kidding.
So we'll get rolling on that in just a moment. And, of course, to my right, the producer of the show, Kathy McGuire.
Hello.
We love having her on mic 3. It's fun. And also everybody who's watching on Facebook Live, thank you so much for tuning in. We've been real lucky the last few weeks with the Facebook feeds, and we haven't had the difficulty of shows past, and we're thankful for that. Thank you, Vaughn, for tending to those type of things. And we also the show is simulcast live on tantalk1340.com. They have a YouTube live feed. So if you want to watch on YouTube, it's just a little different camera angle. And we're on Facebook Live every week here, 7:30 on tantalk.com. And the show is also on local AMs and FMs. Well, folks, the topic of last week, and we're going to continue up. This is kind of the, if you listened last week, we were speaking about Carl Jung, who was he invented a whole genre of psychology. Jungian psychology is everything to do with his teachings and his life work. And it's just absolutely fascinating. And his relationship with what they called back then in the 50s, flying saucers, okay, as there's going to be several new names coming up here, even way past UFO. And
that was my fault. Sorry.
That was you? Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
So Michael's been doing an in-depth study on the Jungian section of the flying saucers or UFOs or extraterrestrials or whatever you're comfortable calling them. And we got into it last week, and it was, he's kind of more or less agreeing with the extraterrestrial worldview. Wouldn't you say? I mean,
I say exactly the opposite. He refuses to accept flying saucers as anything other than a psychic phenomenon.
Psychic phenomenon.
He does not accept flying saucers as of 1958 as being a real physical phenomenon, because he didn't think the science was advanced enough for him to, as a scientist, make that kind of conclusion. But he also says that whether or not flying saucers are real is irrelevant because of the nature of the psyche and its needs and its ability to project what the psyche needs. Even as a group, this can be done, but it's extremely rare. He doesn't cite any occasions for it, but he's one of those scientists of the last century that is a very strange combination. He accepts God as a factual reality.
Okay.
And he's working in a scientific community that's atheistic.
Right.
And he refuses to really bring God much into any of these two works.
Okay.
And he really keeps the materialistic scientific view of things, and he writes about it. And it's kind of disappointing in a way, but what's, because he misses the big picture. Once again, what he relates to, or we know as CE3s, these
close encounters of the third kind.
Yeah, they're not CE5s. They're not human-initiated close encounters. So it's up to us, and that's what I'm doing with the article that I'm writing, is to dovetail what he gave us with what we know now, and how we can make it work.
Okay.
But the most important thing in the book Flying Saucers and in Synchronicity, which he says you need to understand and read to get flying saucers. So,
and that's a second book.
Yeah, that's.
He wrote what, 19?
He wrote. There's a 20-volume set, and he was just a prolific essayist and writer. So, gigantic volume of work for him. But once again, if you remember that, based on his philosophy, it bases his conclusion that whether or not UFOs are real is irrelevant.
Okay.
The societal needs are still the same, and the societal needs that bring UFOs, in his opinion, into our vision was the projection of things, because we had created gigantic problems with the atomic energy and atomic bomb we'd unleashed, and he wrote this at the time of the Cold War, when the Iron Curtain was still there. And the most important thing that he writes about for people who are involved in the CE5 movement, which is what it is now, it's become a lot greater than it was a couple of years
ago.
It's getting
really multiplying,
very, very, very large. Is that number one, in Flying Saucers, and we'll address it in a couple of minutes.
Sure.
The need for disclosure.
The need from government sources,
yes,
from whatever.
Right. What he says about it is pretty profound. And even more than that, what he does is outlines the kind of social movement, and I will rephrase again, the pacifist revolution.
Okay.
And he essentially outlines it here.
Okay.
And we'll talk about that probably in the second half, towards the end of the show, because it's the most important thing that he writes about here. And even though he gets a lot of stuff wrong, he nails this so on the head. It can't go without saying, and it can't go without kind of publishing and tying it in to the human initiated contact movement that we have going on today.
Yeah, and this is where this all kind of falls in with us. The imho.love show is many years ago. We started. I started doing this show under the name Lutopia.com. And I also want to have just a moment here. We'll get back to Carl Jung in just a second. My very, very first co-host was a beautiful lady named Laura Lum. And I sadly tell my audience, if you can check, she's in the archives. She passed away. She just went suddenly. She left a husband, a couple kids, and just gone. And again, and all this had happened a couple of weeks ago, and I apologize for not getting into it until now. My life's just been a big shake of pudding. And but Laura, beautiful person, beautiful soul. I know we'll see her again. She will resurface in our lives. But from Lutopia and the imho.love show, our condolences and deepest love for your family and everybody that you left behind. You were a really talented lady. So anyway, back to current things. The thing that Jung, it's like this whole subject of the flying saucers that he wrote upon extensively. Almost any piece. And some of the modern, just the like street psychologies that are available are Jungian quotes. He's so saturated our society, and he was such a reference point. Do you think? Well, like a common, Jungian quote is, "There's no coming to consciousness without pain." Okay. I think a lot of us recognize that, I know the pain in my life has certainly brought me into much deeper consciousness. Michael, I know the same with you. You're a soul searcher, and Kathy has, she's had her share of the blues too. And that's what draws us closer and closer to our inner self, because when you see the impermanence of life and good times, you turn inward, and that's where you wake up more again, which is Jungian psychology as well.
Well, yeah, that goes to self-analysis and analysis of your place in the cosmos. And surprisingly enough, Jung writes about his becoming conscious at the age of 11. And
wow,
so when in fact, becoming conscious of yourself is one thing, but I think the consciousness that takes the pain and the work is becoming conscious of others.
Yes,
and being able to relate to them in the cosmos as an interrelated and integral part of yourself.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely.
So that takes work. It takes work, number one, to realize that. It takes work, number two, to make it happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jung came to consciousness at age 11. How'd you like to have been his seesaw mate?
Well, see, the thing is, it's funny, age of 11, I think I've been conscious my entire life.
Yeah.
You know, and
Sure.
although my consciousness of the Tao, what I call the Tao, what others do, and my consciousness of Carl Jung, and my consciousness of how I interrelate, and yeah, that thing's, I mean,
There you go.
it's full of lead.
There you go. Much better.
So thank you. So that takes a lot of work.
Yeah.
And it's worth the work, but it forms the basis of our ability to communicate with each other, and at a spiritual and a psychic level, communicate with ET and HIB.
Well, that's the only way to go. I mean, when you've been swimming around in your own head for decades, you have to start looking outside of yourself. And that's where a lot of us in this HICE, the human initiated contact experiences, that's where we saw an avenue of great joy. We went, okay, we've contemplated our own existence, our own life, our own struggles, and we've, built a pretty good basis of a human being in each of us. And now, it's almost like, okay, I continue to learn, and I don't even pretend to know everything, but I'm ready for more information. I'm ready for new levels of energies, new frequencies.
Yeah, it also makes you realize too is that the nature of the nature of meditation too. I sent you a YouTube tape this week. It's on imho.love, where we have Cheryl Costa is talking about.
I watched her.
Yeah, and she was an early mentor for me. Not that we've met, but I everything that I get my hands on that she wrote, I read.
Yeah,
and she's a genius, and she really gets on.
She gets it. She's carrying a lot of merit badges that I don't think. She mentions them throughout her speech, and fine if that's I guess
she still discards them all and basically says this is all you really have to do.
Well, we got that dance with the one who brung you.
Right.
It's like no matter how far advanced I get, I'll still remember those early moments I had with Jesus. It's like it's dance with the one who brung you. That's the way it goes.
Right.
And you carry that with you. But as far as her psychology of this all being a giant oneness, and once you start to understand that you are your friend, you are your brother, you are your sister, you are, this is all one continuous thing. And the deeper you can accept that and understand that, you're going to pick up a level of flow within your personality that you're not used to, but you're going to enjoy. But also consequently, when you're that tuned in, when the ugliness comes by, it hurts even a little bit more,
Well, you mentioned the Bible, and when Cain kills Abel, and Cain says to God, well, I'm not my brother's keeper, it would have gone a long way if for everybody else who had to read that book, if God had said, no, wait a minute, Bubba, you are your brother's keeper, and you killed him. Okay. Right. You are your brother's keeper, and we are our brother's keeper, our sister's keepers. And I think that is what eventually we can resolve that with Jung and with our responsibility as contactees and experiencers. And that's what the free the book and the research found, is that once you have this experience with ET, once you meet ET, once you have that heart-rendering experience, you come back changed. It's like, Paul after being stricken and fallen from the horse. It's the metanoia. Jung mentions that as well, is that you are forever changed. And as a consequence of contact, you're more concerned about humanity. You're more concerned about the planet. That was like across the board. There was like very few of any exceptions to that. And we all come out at a higher spiritual plane, far less ego. The ego dissolves, the psyche appears, and so does the self. And then we self-actualize by uniting both our consciousness and our unconsciousness. And then we become individual human beings that need to be treasured and recognized for what we are. And that's what Jung gets to at the end of Flying Saucers.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yep.
So it pays off at the end.
It does. That's why this is a 2-episode serial. Gotta keep everybody waiting.
Well, and that's the thing. And Jung definitely was tapping into those psychologies. One of his famous quotes is, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there's any reaction, both are transformed." And that's good and bad. I mean, but facing reality and personality on a chemical level, there's people that you meet and you're automatically attracted to. Dude, I got to tell you, Kathy, a couple days ago, I sell hurricane windows and doors for Armor Tech, windows and doors, during the day. And I had a in-home demonstration, and they had this little 2-year-old boy. His name was Caleb. And he and I just like hit it right off. We locked eyes and we looked at each other and we both smiled. And he sat in my lap the whole time I prepared the window and door estimate. And I was just able to look at him, and he was adorable kid. In fact, he was like voted cutest kid in Tampa Bay last year or something. He's really quite a little doll. And but he's looking up at me and I'm looking down at him, and we're just smiling at each other. And I'm identifying with his innocence. He's just his whole world is nice and beautiful right now, where we're trying to get back to. So, and we got to do all of this drudgery and deep cleaning and scrubbing out and
40 hours a week,
analyzing. And oh my God, who set this up? Man? So anyway, okay. Now Jung, we're at
we got plenty of time.
Plenty of time. Sure. So now, and he mentions extraterrestrials throughout his writing.
Well, he just goes to UFOs. He doesn't use the term extraterrestrials
at all.
Very sparingly. I mean, not even it's dropped a few times in there, ET, but it's not. It's either flying saucers or UFOs.
Okay. And we are to understand that that's what he meant.
Yeah, and that was probably the nomenclature of the time. But it's interesting. He goes into and for those of you who pick up his book, you can actually get it on you'll find it on YouTube. But he does a chapter on UFOs and modern painting. My advice is to skip it totally.
Really?
Yeah, unless you want to have somebody's painting psychoanalyzed from a Jungian perspective because it's got UFOs in it, that's okay. But, read it for completeness, but you don't need it to understand what you need to know.
He was an incredible artist. My God.
Yeah, he was.
I mean, look up his work. I mean, if you're just familiar with his, psychiatric stuff.
Yeah, but he's a totally boring critic.
Well,
I mean, it's like, holy cow. It says,
see, he was missing that one element. The thing we talk about all the time is a higher form of enlightenment is humor and laughter.
Yeah, the je ne sais quoi.
Whatever you say.
Yeah, it's French for, I have no idea what it means.
I think I heard it in a movie a couple times. Je ne sais quoi.
It's like,
I wish Eddie Izzard was here right now. What?
Reminds me of my son. He's watching this movie and there's Heather Locklear, and this guy goes to Heather Locklear. He goes, "Enchanté, madame." And my son looks at me and goes, "I know what that means in French." I was like, "What?" He goes, "You're a babe."
Enchanté, enchanted.
Yep, yes. I think you got it right.
Very nice. Yeah.
So,
Yes.
Well, we skip the and then he goes into a section on UFOs considered in a non-psychological light, and he really just doesn't. He basically says that it's irrelevant and whether or not they're real or not. So
what he's saying is basically we humans need to believe in them.
Well, we just do. Yeah, we do have a need to believe in them because our existential reality has gotten so precarious and dangerous with the advent of mutually assured death, mutually assured destruction, with the potential for atomic warfare, that he's saying that these are, in his opinion, projections of the of individual or collective psyches onto reality. Now, Dr. Joseph Birx also mentions how the UFOs can actually take that, prayer for contact and not appear, but give us the appearance they're appearing, much like we would do with Operation Bluebeam with the technologies that we have. So it's always a possibility. But once again, what Jung does not understand or go into, because he does not have the facts at hand, is the CE5 initiative, where we create the contact, and instead of it being a synchronistic contact where UFOs appear over a mountain while we're driving and we haven't done anything to do it.
Sure.
There's a cause and effect analysis that belongs in the work that doesn't exist there, because he did not accept UFOs as being a physical phenomenon or an existential reality.
Yeah, well, he's missing a pretty big element of it there.
It is, but it's our duty to take what he gave us here, and it is precious, and to move it to the next level as an explanation or an integration of
take the best, leave the rest. That's
right.
how you're supposed to live your life.
Right. Well, and we need to integrate that into what we do know. Matter of fact, I wrote a note here that this is evidence of Jung's mind being blown by a UFO being real. He writes, the psyche can move the body, but only inside a living organism. The sometimes psychic possessing material qualities and high charge of energy could appear by itself high in the air at a great distance from any human mediums. Excuse me. This surpasses our comprehension. Here our knowledge leaves us completely in the lurch, and is therefore pointless to speculate any further in this direction. That's where he ends. He ends it that way a couple of times because he's refusing to go over the edge. I just don't think he had the information there. I do think that when he ended up, painting the orb in the tree in the garden, that he may have had a psychic or a UFO experience that was real.
Sure. Well, and also that may have been his depiction of life source or whatever, but that's the thing that here we are blending all this Jungian stuff, and we talk about it every week, and this show is really blowing me away because it's getting more and more profound. We're digging up some really good stuff, and it's all based in love and understanding. And it really is, this is the swelling of the pacifist revolution. We're not going to fire a bullet. We're not going to throw a stick. We're not going to do anything. But spiritually, we will be able to move the consciousness of people. And I see this happening. It's kind of what the culmination of my life as a stand-up comedian, as a radio guy, as a sales guy, as my mother's son. This is where I see my energy going forward and building this pacifist revolution, even with this little radio show and our podcast. And we thank everybody high on Facebook and YouTube, and it's just great that you're all here. It's just incredible. But we see this moving in a very important direction, because we will be handling the reality of disclosure very soon. Exactly when, who knows? But we are going to have to deal with the truth that extraterrestrial life is real, and it does interact with us, and almost to the point where it's like the government denies it, but we believe it. We already know these things. So we're kind of a pre-runner where you want to show you, or at least condition you for the mindset that you're going to need to accept this.
And that's a great lead into what we're going to begin the second half with, is what Jung writes about the disclosure and how awful it is and how necessary it is. But before we get there, he writes in the book, the psychic situation of mankind and the UFO phenomenon as a real reality bears no recognizable causal relationship to one another, but they seem to coincide in meaningful manner. So basically he's saying, I don't know what the explanation is, okay, but they coincide with each other in a meaningful manner. And what he does is he's starting to get into synchronicity and causation.
Okay.
So, he can't explain this as an area of CE3. Well, he's trying to. He's struggling with it, but the fact that CE5 really doesn't exist for him yet leaves him without further explanation. So, we're trying to take that to the next step.
Exactly. And for those of you just tuning in or you haven't been listening for very long, when we talk about HICE or CE5, what that is close encounters, or however you want to put it, of the fifth kind. And HICE is human initiated contact experiences. And what we do with our group is we gather monthly when there is no moon out on the ranch out there in Dade City, Area 54, or Area 52, we call it. And then we have a group meditation, and we invite communication with our extraterrestrial family, our star family. And if you're interested to find out what that's all about, so all this will make a little more sense to you. What's the Darby Ranch address? You got it, Kathy?
Oh, no, don't give out the address. You can go to Meetup and then join.
Okay.
Join our group on Meetup.
Meetup. That's what we want to do.
We have 151 members on Meetup.
Okay.
It's gotten to the point where I have a full-time keeper on the property. Just don't pick up and stop on by.
No. I wasn't. No, I meant the email address.
Email address is darbyranchce5@gmail.com.
darbyranchce5@gmail.com.
Yes, we try to protect the identities and the privacy of all the people who participate in this. It's an open group. You're allowed to join it if you will. But once again,
well, that's why I put the email out there, so you can email Michael and he'll send you the protocols of what it is that we do, because it does have some structure, and it's not, it's something that we take seriously and with intention. That's what these shows are about every Wednesday night. We're trying to build the basis of that community, and within our community, we try to be very, very respectful of each other's privacy and try to be, walk a mile in their shoes.
Also, when for those of our friends that have been shut down by Facebook out there, CE5 groups that have multiple mishaps, there are multiple groups that are being discriminated against now on Facebook. The UFO Hub is now on MeWe. I'm on MeWe now. I'm going to be, moving away from Facebook onto a
MeWe.
MeWe, yeah.
MeWe.com?
Yeah, it's just MeWe. MEWE.
MeWe.
I'm dyslexic because it could be we me, but I think it's
that's for smaller people.
It's me.
You're too large to be we me.
Right, well,
you're MeWe.
We're MeWe. We're going MeWe.
Say that 10 times fast.
Okay.
Well, we're at the 2-minute mark. Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to the imho.love show. I'm Lou Angelwolf. That's Michael Murburg, who's done some extensive study on the book Carl Jung wrote about flying saucers. And that's the name of this show, Carl Jung and Flying Saucers. We're going to tap back into that in the second half. Kathy McGuire's here, and she's keeping everybody tuned up on the Facebook feed. And thank you so much. I saw Ann was listening there. And hey, there's Ward. Ward and I have a special weekend coming up. We're getting married, me and Ward. No, Ward's getting married. And to his beautiful bride-to-be, Karen. And I have the privilege and honor of serving as the preacher, master of ceremonies, officiating. I'm officiating.
Toastmaster General.
I'm not a toastmaster.
You're officiating the
ceremony. I'm officiating
yes.
the ceremony.
Oh, okay.
Yes. So
make sure your notary stamp is.
It is. It's all
good.
tuned up. It's all tuned up.
Nothing worse than having it expired stamping marriage certificate.
It sounds like a bad premise for a sitcom. Years from Ward shows up. Lou, it was no good. Anyway. So anyway, folks, that's my weekend coming up, and then they're going to be blessed. They get along great together. Anyway, well, folks, this is the imho.love show. Lou Angelwolf here, Michael Murburg, Kathy McGuire. We got to listen to the regular news and stuff. So we'll be back in about 6 minutes. And just thank you so much for listening. And we got more stuff coming up. I'm going to express a little gratitude in the second half here. So thanks for listening. imho.love.
WTAN, Clearwater.
FM 106.1.
WDCF, Dade City.
FM 102.3.
WZHR, Zephyr Hills.
FM 104.3.
Listen.
ISIS resurgence, wildfire threat. I'm Barbara Cusack.
The United States didn't give Turkey a green light.
That's Secretary of State Mike Pompeo on the heels of Turkey invading Syria only days after President Trump called for U.S. forces to pull out. During a PBS interview, Pompeo further dismissed widespread concerns over the resurgence of the Islamic State in Syria.
We have taken down the caliphate. There are ISIS remnants that remain. We'll continue to be in a position to do what we need to do to keep the American people as safe as we possibly can from this threat.
The campaign got underway by Turkey today to crush Kurdish fighters who are America's only allies inside Syria in the fight against the Islamic State. Turkey, though, views the Kurds as terrorists. Democratic presidential contender Joe Biden called for the impeachment of his potential 2020 election foe, President Trump, for the first time. Correspondent Caitlin Collins reports the president has made it clear House Democrats will get no help from his administration when it comes to impeachment.
President Trump called for it to end after yesterday his White House sent that scathing 8-page letter saying that they believe it's constitutionally invalid, that it violates precedent and the president's due process rights, and saying, no, we are not going to be cooperating with any of your requests.
Correspondent Dave Alpert says a lot of folks in Northern California are wondering why the electricity is being cut off for as many as 800,000 customers tonight when the threat that could spark wildfires has not materialized.
People in the San Francisco Bay Area are angrily asking, where's the wind? Forecasts of strong, gusty winds that could bring down power lines and start wildfires was the reason given for the preventive shutoffs. PG&E's website isn't providing much help in finding answers. The servers were overloaded after frequent announcements on radio and TV directing people to go there.
California environmental officials say the agricultural pesticide chlorpyrifos linked to brain damage in children will be banned in the state after next year. I'm Barbara Cusack.
Thinking about life insurance? What if you could make one free phone call and learn your best price from nearly a dozen highly rated, price-competitive companies? Well, that's exactly what happens when you call SelectQuote Life. For example, George is 40. He was getting sky-high quotes from other companies because he takes meds to control his blood pressure. But when I shopped around, I found him a 10-year, $500,000 policy for under $25 a month. I'm SelectQuote agent Dan Savino. And believe me, if SelectQuote isn't shopping for your life insurance, you're probably paying too much.
For your free quote, call 800-619-0789. That's 800-619-0789. 800-619-0789 or go to selectquote.com. Since 1985, we shop, you save.
Get full details on the example policy at selectquote.com/commercials. Or price could vary depending on your health, issuing company, and other factors. Not available in all states.
There's only one place on the radio where golfers like you can turn for the best tips, interviews, product reviews, local tournaments, and everything golf talk. The Golf Show, guys.
Hey, join the Golf Show, guys, every Wednesday morning from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. It's not just funny, it's informative, it's celebrities, and it's a lot of applause. It's the Golf Show, guys, Wednesday mornings from 9 to 10 a.m. right here on the Tan Talk Radio Network.
Tampa Bay, get excited. The Voice in the Pinhead Show every Friday between 5 and 6 p.m. I'm the Pinhead, Rob Wild, and the voice is Jerry Barisano. So whether you got healthier and lighter, richer or poorer, listening to Tan Talk all week, we guarantee we'll put a smile on your face as we give you our unique slant on news, sports, and entertainment. We'll also have some very unique, exciting guests.
U.S. Reloading Supply salutes our American heritage and the heroes who, through their own personal sacrifice, make this country what it is today. From the veterans of foreign wars to heroes on the home front, from servicemen and women abroad to the police and fire departments and all of our American heroes, we salute you and God bless. That message was courtesy of your good friends at U.S. Reloading Supply at 2383 Tamiami Trail, South in Venice. They are always working to keep our community moving in a positive direction. If you would like to become a wholesale buyer of the premium quality longevity product that you hear about right here on the Tan Talk Radio Network, for personal service, you can pick up the phone right now and call Lola at 727-441-3311. Again, that's Lola at 727-441-3311. Or for even faster service, log on to tantalkhealth.com. That's tantalkhealth.com. Here's to your health and longevity.
Hey, everybody, this is Pastor Marcia McAllister from Beacon of Hope Ministries. We want you to join us on Sunday afternoons at 3 o'clock on this radio station for our 2-hour show, talking to you about the Word of God, giving you great contemporary music, some lively chat, and just some food for thought. You'll be encouraged to know how very much God loves you and how He has a plan for your life. Join us this coming Sunday at 3 o'clock on Living the Good Life.
This is Patty from Soap This. We are having an amazing event November 2nd and 3rd here in Clearwater, Florida, with some of your favorite actors from Young and the Restless. For tickets and pricing, visit soapthis.ticketleap.com. For more info, call 727-210-5143. Again, for tickets, visit soapthis.ticketleap.com.
Don't turn it off now. You need this stuff. Tampa Bay's Tan Talk Radio Network.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the second half of imho.love. I'm Lou Angelwolf in the studio with Michael Murburg and Kathy McGuire. The show's topic has been Carl Jung and Flying Saucers, which actually is Michael has really weaved this into a wonderful life lesson and a current social studies topic that's making a lot of sense. And we've been talking about it for the last the last show too. We kind of set it up, and now everything's getting kind of buttoned up. And I also, you probably watch it on Facebook or YouTube, and thank you so much for that. But we also want to let you know that all of our shows are archived on BitChute. That's BITCHUTE, BitChute.com, imho.love. That is like a permanent file. It's I forget what kind of portal they call it, but it's like it's not censored. Nobody's going to take it down. So, and there are some of our friends that are getting censored right now. But if you go to imho.love on BitChute, unless the world just goes absolutely crazy, we'll be there forever.
Yeah, and to satisfy the IRS, we need to mention that the show is underwritten by Lou Angelwolf Productions and by Mike Murburg, PA, disabilityattorney.net, where justice should be more than just a system. It should be your end result.
That's right. And that's disabilityattorney.net. Yeah, great. All that housekeeping up front there. And thanks so much for people questioning in. What was Ward's question? Do you have that queued up there, Kathy?
Yes, I do. It's Ward Smith would like to know, does this speak to our wanting and searching for meaning that Jung was explaining?
Yeah, that's a great question, and consider it a synchronistic occurrence. We go to synchronicity next week, but it's so perfect because what I was going to get into was a statement by Carl Jung, and what he ends up saying is UFOs are a psychic phenomenon, and like a rumor, have compensatory significance, since it would be a spontaneous answer to the unconsciousness or to the unconscious of the present conscious situation, i.e., to fears created by the apparently insoluble political situation, which might at any time lead to universal catastrophe. So, number one,
okay, you got to recap that. That was a lot of syllables, dude.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, it was higher than the 12th grade level. I'll give it that much. And he says UFOs, and I'm sort of paraphrasing, are psychic phenomenon, and phenomena of this kind would, like a rumor, have a compensatory significance. Meaning, yeah, we're they're significant because we need something back from what we're seeing, and we need something back because, and then he goes into, since it would be a spontaneous answer of the unconscious to the present conscious situation, meaning because things have, the crap has hit the fan and we're looking at existential destruction, our fears create an apparently insoluble political situation which might at any moment lead to universal catastrophe.
Wow.
Yeah, and we're looking down that same double-barrel shotgun today, and he's writing this 60 years ago.
Yes.
And, really nothing has changed. But as the question goes, what Jung is doing is saying, look, we're trying to get an answer. And I have a saying, I looketh into the skies from whence cometh my strength. It's a paraphrase of the Old Testament. I look into the mountains from whence cometh my strength. Because I know the truth of UFO, ET, and HIB, and it has absolutely nothing to do with humanity. And what we're doing is reaching out to ET to make a peaceful change from the old paradigm to the new one. And part of Jung's deal is, in order to answer the question in particular, Jung's life is a striving to balance the male and the female within, the anima and the animus. In the Tao, it's the yin and the yang. It's to understand the collective unconsciousness and the archetypes that is kind of in our DNA, and how we react because it's within us to do things like this. So it is a search for congruity, and it's a search for wholeness and making yourself whole. And it's a search for the individual.
Yes.
And that's what he gets to in his political analysis, which we can get into next to further answer that question.
Wow. Well, it's interesting as I go through this soul journey. I find myself almost like an hourglass, in and out of exclusiveness. As okay, I'm learning. I'm really editing out some bad news here, and then I come through another convolution, and then I'm back. The floodgates are open, and I'm receiving all kinds of new information. And to me, that growing and flowing, it's just happened over and over and over again in my life. And I look back on things I used to believe, things I used to say, the way I used to act. It's hard. You think back and you go, man, who was that out in my clothes? That couldn't have been me, But as we study this, I accept all that. I accept who I was. I don't know if I did the best I could, but I did with what I had at that point. Of course, always wanting more balance. I mean, to me, this whole life is, finding your place, answering the call of your existence. So I know I've been doing that all my life. Exactly right? Of course not. Exactly wrong? Of course not. Somewhere down the middle, like most of us. But when you bring in these kind of very, very deep psychologies and you start rubbing them up against your own life, you can see your personal progress. You can see that, yes, these are things that I discarded. And now the way times have changed and the way information has changed, here we can take this Jungian psychology, which is deep as the Atlantic, and then just blend something really simple, which is what we're being shown these days.
Well, what Jung writes, and this kind of dovetails and goes into the disclosure movement, and he's writing in 1958, he says, what astonishes me most of all is that the American Air Force, despite all the information it must possess, and despite its alleged fear of creating panic similar to the one which broke out in New Jersey on occasion of Orson Welles' radio play, is systematically working towards that very thing by refusing to release an authentic and reliable account of the facts. We all have to go all we have to go on is the occasional information squeezed out by journalists. It's therefore impossible for the uninitiated to form an adequate picture of what is happening. Although for years I've been collecting everything that came within my reach about UFOs. He was a great UFO reader.
Wow.
I must admit that I am no further forward today than I was at the beginning. I still do not know what we are up against with the flying saucers.
Okay. Well, that's an acknowledgement.
It is.
That's an acknowledgement.
It is. And go on. I'm sorry.
If there was nothing to fear, that statement would have been moot.
Yeah. And I can't. Yeah.
Or nothing to understand, not necessarily fear.
I think, he was just such an incredible researcher. He wanted all the information before he was ever going to say exactly what he thought was correct. That's my impression of the way he's writing that. That's the way I take that.
Well, that's the scientific pattern
absolutely.
Of thought and process.
Absolutely.
You know?
And this is what he goes on to say towards the end of the book. He says, it is true that the Air Force or the government withholds telltale facts, or if it is true that the Air Force or government withholds telltale facts, then one can only say that this is the most unpsychological and stupid policy one could invent. Nothing helps rumors and panics more than ignorance. It is self-evident that the public ought to be told the truth, because ultimately it will nevertheless come to the light of day. There can hardly be any greater shock than the H-bomb, and yet everyone knows it without fainting.
Yes. Wow.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah. Hello, Carl.
Man.
Yeah.
So true.
And probably the most important part of what he's writing here.
Okay.
What he says is that what would happen if we actually did confirm extra saucers that are confirmed, and it would prove the existence of an intelligent interplanetary communication. What effect might mean for humanity cannot be imagined, but there is no doubt that we would find ourselves in the same critical situation as primitive societies confronted with the superior culture of the white man in Africa. For example, he mentions the Pax Britannica and how the presence of the British there as a new, intelligent, more far advanced society colonized and basically made peace in Africa, among the warring tribes. So,
they had an organizational set.
Yeah, and
they
said,
had a flag.
Yeah, they had a flag. Very good. Izzy Azaria, what was that?
Eddie Izzard.
Eddie Izzard.
Yeah.
But he said, look, this colonization would not be such a bad thing, but we would have to be discovered and colonized reason enough for it. Would it be reason enough for universal panic? And he doesn't think so. So he basically addresses colonization as a positive thing because we're in such bad shape now as human beings that we can't screw this up any worse than we already have.
Right. I mean, even though, and then, for many years I've talked about the ever expanding extremes, things that were extraordinarily extreme years ago, or let's say 20 years ago, are commonplace now.
Absolutely.
I remember growing up, just for instance, pornography, when, I'll be 60 at the end of the month. And, but I remember, they were called stag films or dirty movies or X-rated. And they were like 8mm things of people with dirty feet. And, they were real.
Black socks, lovely music that came with it.
Great, and they were just so. I mean, but now, to go from that little 8mm thing you're watching on a bed sheet somewhere, to just turn it on, just open up your phone and hit a couple addresses, and you'll have a live sex show in front of you in 10 seconds.
Yeah, well, technology, great. And,
so
although we can't get ET on the telephone,
no,
we actually have to work at it spiritually to do it.
And we can see lakes and rivers in Mars theoretically, but we can't see where all the space equipment is parked on the moon.
Yeah, I know. None of it makes sense. But as we're coming to the bottom of the hour, and I promised that I would tell you where Jung gets it right.
Okay.
And it's going to take a lot of reading, so forgive me. So it says, the seriousness, indeed dangerousness of the problem of individuation cannot be denied in an age in which the destructive effects of mass-mindedness are so clearly apparent for individuation, and since it's the greatest alternative that faces Western civilization. And individuation is exactly what it says.
Individuation.
Yeah, it's a process by which the individual self-develops beyond an unconsciousness that is undifferentiated. It is the search for individual wholeness and meaning, and it's the integration of experience over time into a well-functioning whole, transcendent of narcissism and self-absorption. And that answers our guest's question.
Wow.
So what he says is, this is the end goal. If you study the Tao, you realize that it's dissolving the ego, in a very simple way to put it. So, and he goes on, he says, it is a fact that the dictator state, the individual is robbed of his freedom, and that we too are threatened by this political development. Jordan Peterson. This is Jung, not Jordan Peterson, but Jordan Peterson is a fan. Jung continues, and they're not at all sure of the right means of defense. Hence, the question arises in all urgency, are we going to let ourselves be robbed of our individual freedom, and what can we do to stop it? This is profound.
Very profound. And what they are, what the media or whomever is controlling that right now, what they're trying to do is round off all of our edges. They're all trying to make us all very pliable and mobile. That's why everything is in a computer chip now. That's why you don't even need to, if somebody's got access to a bank account, you can have money and glide through the day. You don't, I don't even see much of my money. They're all just little digital things in an account somewhere, and everything is just getting smoothed over. So you'll stop asking questions. Where they're keeping you so busy, they're feeding you garbage food. You're watching absolute crap on television. Your brain is slowly mushing out. But we're here to save you. We're here to throw you a life preserver.
Yeah, and he Jung continues to write, and he says in his conclusion, he says, anxiously we look round for collective measures, thereby reinforcing the very mass-mindedness we want to fight against.
Yes, fight mass-mindedness, damn it.
There is only one remedy for the leveling effect of these collective measures, and that is to emphasize and increase the value of the individual.
Yes.
The fundamental change of attitude, the metanoia, that we've talked about, is required, a real recognition of the whole man, whole person, whole woman. This can only be the business of the individual, and it must begin with the individual in order to be real. It's also the basis for contact. Mm-hmm. This is the message of our dream, a message addressed to the dreamer from the collective instinctual foundations of humanity. And this quote is important. Large political and social organizations must not be ends in themselves, but merely temporary impediments. Just as it was felt necessary in America to break up the great trusts, so the destruction of huge organizations will eventually prove to be necessary, because, like a cancerous growth, they eat away man's nature as soon as they become ends in of themselves and attain autonomy. That's exactly what you just described.
That's exactly right, man. Well, we're running through the maze, folks, and we certainly don't have the answer. We don't have some big secret camp where we can all go live and dance in the sunlight. You can, I guess, in your mind, you can release a lot of these things, but this is 60-year-old psychology. This rings incredibly true, and these guys, these seers from earlier times, they had to see the path that television was taking people. They had to see the way radio was going. They had to see these changes in the constant downgrading of our acceptable level. The stuff that I'm willing to see. I mean, in the morning while you're having coffee, if you have broadcast television on, you're going to watch like 7 people get murdered while you're eating your cinnamon bun, there's just there's no barrier to what they won't do to sell what it is they have. This level of greed and disrespect for one another in exchange for monetary gain of corporations, it's an ugly turn, man. And it's always been this way, but it's just gotten out of hand, and it makes me very, very uncomfortable.
Well, this is prophetic too. And he says, from the moment that these institutions grow beyond man and escape his control, he becomes their victim and is sacrificed to the madness of an idea that knows no master. All great organizations in which the individual no longer counts are exposed to this danger. There seems to be only one way of countering this threat in their lives, and that is the revaluation of the individual, because there's something now lacking.
Wow. Well, and that explains it. That explains how easily this brainwashing is taking place.
Now, this is where it gets funky. Because what is needed, rather, is an involuntary faith, a kind of metaphysical command.
An involuntary faith. I like
a kind of metaphysical command which no one can manufacture artificially with his own will and understanding. It can only come about spontaneously.
Wow.
A dominant of this kind underlines our dream, the suggestion that certain details of the picture might be connected with the UFO problem was sufficient to constellate in the dream of the archetype underlining the collective phenomenon and to give him numinous, that's a God-related insight into the metaphysical significance of the individual. The empirical man, and that the empirical man is the man who's got his yin and his yang together, extends beyond his conscious boundaries, his life and fate, far more than personal meaning. He attracts the interest of, quote, another world, and achievements are expected of him which transcend the empirical realm and its narrow limits. The status of the individual is enhanced and he acquires a cosmic importance. This numinous transformation is not the result of a conscious intention or intellectual conviction. It is brought about by the impact of overwhelming archetypical impressions. And I add, that's what happens when you meet UFO and when you see ET. The same transformation happens when it's real.
Okay.
So, what he's explaining here is archetypal, but as he said, it doesn't matter if it's real. It doesn't matter if it's just a projection. There's a psychic reality that attaches to it. And what he's explaining is the psychic reality. And these awesome moments we've just been describing are his analysis of the psychic reality as it relates to a physical reality as well.
Yeah, wow. Well, and as you see, the struggle for the individual, now that the individual is defined, now he seeks back into the group. And as he seeks back into the group, he finds that in his individuality, he also finds the sameness and the oneness in all of us. And that was another Jungian thing, was about what you dislike in somebody else is immediately reflected in yourself. It's something that, you meet somebody that's, they do that, man, I can't stand that. Yeah. You know why? Because you do it.
Yeah, it's the shadow figure you got to deal with.
Yeah.
Jung goes on, and I know we're going to be wrapping this up. He goes, it's not the ego that is exalted, rather something greater than it makes its appearance. It's the self, a symbol that expresses the whole man.
Something greater than it is.
Which is the self. But the ego loves to think of itself as the whole man and therefore has a greater difficulty in avoiding the dangers of inflation. This is another reason why experiencers are shunned, indeed feared as pathological, is why the very idea of the unconscious and any preoccupation with it is unwelcome. Hello.
Yeah, man. Dude, that is a mile deep. I'm going to have to listen to that again. Well, ladies and gentlemen, you've been listening to the imho.love show. We've been covering Carl Jung and Flying Saucers and the UFO phenomenon of years gone by, but seeing it to be very prophetic in these approaching days that we will have some sort of official, in quotes, disclosure from various talking heads that will deem it necessary to tell us so.
Well, we ran out of time before I got to really let the kitten out of the bag here, so we'll just have to do Young 3 next time.
Okay, buddy.
Awesome.
And do a wrap-up conclusion with it, and then we can take it from there.
Very good. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'm Lou Angelwolf. That's Michael Murburg in the studio with us, Kathy McGuire, and our board op over there, it's Vaughn. Well, you have spent another hour on imho.love. That's in my humble opinion.love. What you heard tonight was peaceful, loving talk presented to you in a helping and caring fashion. Take what you like and leave the rest. And we appreciate you listening in, tuning in, however you get it up to us. Feel free to share the show. It's going to show up on Facebook here in just a little bit. It'll be on YouTube. And of course, the mothership, imho.love. And you'll also get permanent storage on BitChute. That's imho.love. I'm Lou Angelwolf, and thank you for listening to us. And we'll be back next week. And use your head and trust your gut.
Peace, y'all.